In 2007, a shocking event took place at a quiet Portuguese resort. It would later become one of the most mysterious criminal cases of the 21st century. A 3-year-old British girl named Madeleine McCann vanished from her family's holiday apartment. Her disappearance triggered one of the most expensive and widely followed investigations in British history, attracting global media attention for years. The story began in early May 2007. Kate and Gary McCann traveled to the small resort town of Praia da Luz in Portugal for a vacation. They were staying there with a group of friends, 9 adults and several children in total. Many of them were doctors who had known each other for years. The families stayed in apartments within the same resort complex. During the day, the children played in a kids' center while the adults relaxed or spent time on the beach. In the evenings, the group usually gathered for dinner at a nearby restaurant located about 50 meters from their apartments. On the night of May 3rd, everything followed their usual routine. Around 9:30 p.m., Kate and Gary left their apartment to have dinner with their friends. Their 3 children, a 3-year-old Madeleine and her 2-year-old twin siblings, were left asleep in the bedroom. The adults agreed to check on the children periodically. Every so often, one of them would leave the table and walk back to the apartments to make sure everything was fine. Around 9 p.m., Gary McCann went to check on the children. According to him, the room was quiet and all 3 children appeared to be asleep. However, one small detail caught his attention. The bedroom door was slightly open, even though he remembered leaving it more closed. He didn't think much of it and returned to the restaurant. Later, one of the friends also checked on the children. He briefly looked into the room and assumed everything was normal. Later, he admitted that he hadn't actually checked closely enough to see whether Madeleine was in her bed. Around 10 p.m., Kate McCann decided to check on the children herself. She entered the apartment through the patio door and immediately noticed that the bedroom door was open wider than before. When she tried to close it, the door suddenly slammed shut, as if pushed by a draft. As she approached the beds, she quickly realized something was wrong. The twins were sleeping peacefully, but Madeleine's bed was empty. Only her favorite stuffed toy was lying on the pillow. The girl was gone. Kate ran out of the apartment and rushed toward the restaurant, screaming that her daughter had been taken. Chaos followed. Friends, hotel staff, and guests began searching the area immediately. They looked through bushes, around parked cars, and inside nearby buildings. Madeleine's parents were in shock. Witnesses later said that Kate was crying uncontrollably while Gary silently searched between cars, hoping to find his daughter. The search continued throughout the entire night. Police officers inspected the apartment, but several serious mistakes were made early in the investigation. Border authorities, for example, were only informed about the disappearance almost a full day later. That delay may have allowed a possible kidnapper to leave the country. In addition, the crime scene was not properly secured. Too many people entered the apartment, potentially contaminating or destroying important evidence. Meanwhile, the story began spreading rapidly through the media. Friends of the McCanns contacted journalists, hoping that public attention would help accelerate the search. But the intense media coverage had an unexpected side effect. Eventually, the police began to suspect the parents themselves. Several months later, investigators proposed a controversial theory: Madeleine may have died accidentally, possibly after being given too much sleeping medication, and her parents allegedly hid the body and staged the kidnapping. This theory was partly based on reactions from specially trained dogs that detected the scent of blood and decomposition in the apartment, and even inside a rental car used by the family weeks after Madeleine disappeared. However, experts later stated that such signals cannot be considered reliable evidence. DNA tests also failed to provide conclusive results. Other suspects were investigated as well. One of the first was a British man named Robert Murat, who lived close to the apartment complex. For a time, he was considered the main suspect, but eventually police found no evidence linking him to the crime. Later, it turned out that witnesses had mistakenly identified another tourist as a potential abductor. That man had simply been carrying his own child back to his apartment that evening. As time passed, Madeleine's parents tried to keep public attention focused on the case. They worked with public relations specialists, appeared on television programs, and even met with global figures, including the Pope, They also created a foundation to fund the search for their daughter, which raised millions of pounds. Despite the enormous publicity, the investigation struggled to produce answers. In 2008, Portuguese authorities officially closed the case. However, in 2011, the United Kingdom reopened the investigation under a new operation known as Operation Grange. British detectives reviewed thousands of pieces of evidence and re-examined many possible leads. Over 8,000 tips were received from people around the world who claimed to have seen Madeleine. Most of them turned out to be false leads. For many years, it seemed the case might never be solved. But in 2020, a major development occurred. German authorities announced that they had identified a new primary suspect, a German man named Christian Brückner, who had previously been convicted of sexual crimes. According to investigators, he was in the Praia da Luz area at the time of Madeleine's disappearance. Police also found evidence suggesting that he had discussed abducting a child online. German prosecutors believe he may have been responsible for Madeleine's disappearance. Their theory suggests that the girl may have died shortly after being kidnapped. Brückner denies any involvement. Even after years of investigations and millions spent, the fate of Madeleine McCann remains unknown. If she is still alive, she would now be an adult. Her parents continue to hope that one day the truth will finally be revealed, and that they will see their daughter again.